And on Skype we have John Urwin, who is an expert in a skill called the machine. It's a special training for self-defense and offense. And John has a fascinating story that he's going to talk about over the next hour. So, John, you're very welcome to the show.
Hi, James. It's nice to be with you.
Thanks very much for making time available to talk to me today. I've listened to your interview there that you had there with Project Camelot. I was fascinated by the subject matter. And I was speaking to a friend of yours as well, Richard. And Richard as well said I should talk to you because your story should be shared with as many people as possible. And after listening to the Project Camelot interview, I have to agree with him. It's a fascinating story. And, you know, I'm looking forward to getting stuck into it.
Yeah, okay. Where would you like to start? Do you want to start, obviously, at the beginning, do you?
Yeah, start at the very beginning, as the song says.
Well, I was brought up, in the early ages, I was brought up during the war. So by the time let's start here. I think I spent about 5 years at school because of the war. I left school when I was 14. When I left school, I got a job on a farm. So I was working on a farm for nearly 2 years.
Okay.
But I didn't really want to be on the farm. It was convenient at the time. So I wanted to be a mechanic. So I got a job as a trainee mechanic. And it wasn't working out. So when the national service papers came along, I joined up for the armed forces.
Yeah.
Expecting again, I tried to get into the REME, the Royal Electrical Engineers.
Mm-hmm. That'd be a good job, I'm sure.
Yeah, I tried to get into that, and unfortunately. When they are short on people in various other regiments, what they do, they just fill the gap wherever is necessary. So I ended up in just an ordinary working regiment. And it was during the training, when I went down to North Wales for the training, I was there about a week. And when everybody else was going to the NAFI, I used to go down to the gym because I was, like you say, I was a keep fit fanatic, you see.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't drink. I've never drank, and I've never smoked. And like I said, I used to go down to the gym. And then one night, when I was at the gym, I was approached by a sergeant, and he asked us if I was enjoying myself and what did I think of the armed forces. And I said, well, I'm really disappointed. The way things are going. Mm-hmm. He said, well, would you like to do something more exciting? I says, well, what do you mean? And then he said, well, is it something more in the line of combat you want to be in? I says, yeah, rather than, what I'm doing now or what I'm about to be doing after me training. So after he said, okay, I'll look into that. Mm-hmm. And I never heard any more.
Okay.
And then at the end of me training, there was a massive troop movements to the Middle East. There was 18,000 troops left the Middle East. That was late 57 to the Middle East.
Okay.
And on our way there from Heathrow Airport, our aeroplane had something wrong with it. Something wrong with the engines had stopped, and we had to land in Malta. Now, I was told we were on our way to Aden. When I landed in Malta, orders had changed for whatever reason. I don't know why. But they said, we're John, you're Geordie, which used to, I wasn't called John then. Mm-hmm. They used to call us Geordie. We're sending you to, we're going to send you to, Cyprus instead. I said, why is that? So, well, that's just orders, we have no idea why. So anyway, I ended up in Cyprus. And to cut a long story short, the first 2 weeks we were there, we didn't actually have a camp as such. Do you understand? We didn't have any borders or anything like that, any fencing.
Yeah.
And we're in the process of doing that. But things were pretty hot at the time when we got there. We were being attacked by various terrorist groups. And anyway, we got the camp all set up. And when we finished that, I said, okay, it's time. You've got time off at the weekend. So I went down to the beach, and I went down with 2 other colleagues of mine, and one of them had to carry a rifle with her. And we went down to a beach called Episcopi.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is military. This is a military area, by the way.
Yeah.
And when I was sitting on the beach, my 2 mates went in for a swim, and I had to sit there with a rifle on guard, so to speak.
Yeah.
And when I was sitting there, this chap came over and started talking to us. And excuse me. And he started mentioning about. He says, you know, when you were back in Blighty, I said, yeah, during the training, and you were approached in the gym, weren't you? I said, that's right, yeah. He says, and I asked you if you wanted to do something more exciting than what you're doing now.
John,
said,
what did this guy look like?
I said, sorry.
What did this guy look like?
This guy was, let's say, about 6'2", 6'3", very blonde hair, big blue eyes, spoke with a perfect Queen's, English accent, and I just naturally took he was an officer,
mm-hmm.
and then he, like I said, he asked me if I remember being approached when I was back in Blighty. I said, yeah, I do, but I had forgot all about it. I didn't think the guy was serious, I said, you see.
Mm-hmm.
He said, well, that still stands if you're still interested, you see. And I said, why me? He says, oh, we'll have our reasons, but are you still interested? I said, yeah. He says, okay, we'll get in contact with you again. And as my 2 mates were coming out of the sea and approaching us, he got up and left. And my 2 mates said, who's that? He was wearing the short pants he was wearing were actually like officers wear, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, what happened was we went back to camp, and they would keep on saying, they keep asking us who he was. I said, look, I have no idea at all. He said, well, what was he talking about? And I wouldn't tell them. I didn't like to say it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, a couple of weeks had gone by, and I forgot all about it again. You know, I was wondering when I was going to be invited to do the extra training or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So anyway, what happened was I had a bit of a stammer at the time, and they put us into an officer's mess as a waiter. I was there for another 2 weeks, and I got rid of the stammer. This is because of my childhood. I was brought up with a father who was he was an ex-boxer, and he used to braze about a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is where the stammer came from. But anyway, cut a long story short, I was in the officer's mess just for, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks, got rid of the stammer, and then all of a sudden, I thought that was the other job I was going to get. You understand? I couldn't understand why I was ended up in the officer's mess.
Yeah.
But anyway, to cut a long story short, the sergeant, the cook sergeant, came up and says, you're out. I says, what do you mean I'm out? I said, I've been here 5 minutes. He says, well, we're getting orders, you're out. He says, okay. So I went back to the camp, and on the Monday morning, on parade, where you're sent to various different jobs, my name was called out, and said I had to go to Limassol. I says, okay. So I went down to the Remy depot next door to pick up a truck, and I was sitting in the truck waiting for the driver. What happened then was this other sergeant from that particular depot came along. He says, why are you sitting here? I said, I'm waiting for the driver.
Mm.
He says, you're the driver. I says, all right, is that right? He says, there's your documents. You're going to Limassol. I said, but why? What am I supposed to be doing? He says, look, just take the orders. Do as you're told. You see, I said, look, I don't even know my way to Limassol.
Mm-hmm.
So look, there's only one road, you know, and they give us a bit of a map to follow. So I jumped in the truck and I said, listen, I'm not supposed to drive. We're not supposed to go out on our own. We're always supposed to have someone that's with with a gun, you see, with a rifle.
Yeah, yeah.
He says, well, I don't know neither. He says, okay, just beat it. So I did. I was driving along the road, and what happened then was this figure stepped out in the middle of the road as I was heading towards Limassol. This is about 4 or 5 miles out of camp. And I didn't want to stop because I didn't know exactly who it was until I was sort of driving past them, and I seemed to recognize the face. So I stopped about 100 yards past them. And he came walking down towards us. And he said, you opened the door of the truck. He says, okay, Geordie, get out. I says, why? What's happening? He says, remember me? I was, he was the guy that was on the beach with us. I said, yes, I do. He said, well, look, my name's Ken. He says, so come with us, just leave the truck. I said, I can't do that. I can't just leave the truck here. I was getting really worried at this stage. So anyway, I ended up getting into this Jeep with him and leaving the truck behind.
Yeah.
So anyway, to cut a long story short, he took us to the base of Trudus Mountains. I ended up in this big steel, like what looked like an airplane hangar. The surrounding areas was sort of desolate. It hadn't been used for a lot of years. The concrete around the area was all breaking up and grass coming through it, or weeds. And there was these lizards and everything running all over the bloody place. And it looked desolate, you see.
Yeah.
So anyway, we walked up to the steel door, and you opened the door. When I went inside, there was 3 of the chaps in there. And they were actually training. They were doing some kind of combat. And when I went in, and they closed the door behind us, I started to get a bit worried because these guys had a very good stand, and they could have been locals, you understand? And I thought, what the hell have I let myself in for?
Yeah.
So anyway, these 3 guys come over and introduced themselves. There was Can, Dynamo, and Chalky. That's what their nicknames. And I was introduced to them. And I wanted to know, what the hell was going on here, because inside that hangar was a sort of, again, a concrete floor. Half of it was missing, and the place looked desolate inside. At the end of the hangar, which was a large hangar, big enough to put a fairly large aircraft in, but I couldn't see, there wasn't any runway anywhere near the place. So, anyway, when they introduced us, they took us upstairs, up a small flight of stairs, into this office, which had no windows. The windows were broken, and just before going into that office, they had what it's called like tailor's dummies lying about. They had lockers, and there was things in it, and I also saw some turnips, ordinary turnips, hanging on bits of string from the girders.
Turnips?
And I couldn't understand. Turnips, yeah. So I had no idea what they were for, you see?
Yeah.
So anyway, I went into this office, sat down at this table, and this Ken, this tall, blonde, blue-eyed guy, had big blue eyes, sat opposite. And he kept on talking to us about what did I think about what was happening on the island and things like that, and asking us about, if I was a patriot or not, and things like that, And he just kept on talking, invited us, give us some tea, and he says, are you really serious about doing something more exciting, I said, yeah, of course I am. I said, I don't want to spend another 2 years just digging holes and things like that. So, anyways, I was sitting there. I heard this noise, like a whistling noise, like somebody cracking a whip or something of that nature, sort of a slushing noise, And this seemed to last for just a few seconds, and it got louder. And I stood up to have a look out of the window to see what was going on. When I looked out of the small window into the hangar, these turnips were in bits. They were everywhere, just in bits. And the 3 guys were standing near them, and I couldn't see how they did that. I didn't see any weapons of any sort. These turnips would be about, what, 5 or 6 feet away from them.
Mm-hmm.
But they were now in bits and scattered everywhere. And I turned around and says, what's happening there? He says, you'll soon find out. He says, just sit down.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk to you about something, you see? He says, okay, so you're all for this? I said, yeah, of course I am, yeah. He says, okay. He says, what we are, he sort of mentioned that there were a sort of an intelligence group, and I'll be trained in a thing called a machine. And I was asking him what this machine was. He says it's a form of combat that will enable you to disarm people, no matter what they've got, whether rifles, submachine guns, and we'll all be teaching the psychology behind it. He says, because you can't just walk up and take a gun off someone. You know, you're not going to get that close if he intends to shoot you. So the psychology would come in. So we'll be actually teaching you to be a sort of a military strategist, an analyst at the same time. I says, all right, this sounds fascinating. And then he says, okay. He says, drink your tea. And when I was drinking the tea, don't forget this tea, they had came in, these other guys that came in,
yeah,
and they were drinking out of the same thing that the tea was in, the urn.
Yeah.
So it was all the same tea, and it was passed over to me, and I was watching them pretty carefully, because they're only 2 feet away, 3 feet away, so they couldn't have put anything in me tea. Do you understand? Because I sat with the tea, and I was only taking a few sips of it.
Mm-hmm.
And when Ken was sitting directly opposite, he was spinning this coin. And it's, let's explain what the table was like. The table were like planks of wood, and it had small gaps in between. And on the table itself, the wood, had been hacked with a knife, like names hacked out in the wood.
Yeah.
And there was other scratches of all sorts where things had been put on the table. So it wasn't smooth. It was a very rough surface. But for some reason, he could make this big coin spin on the table. He says, okay, Geordie. And he starts saying things like, he says, this is part of the program, he said. He says, so listen carefully. So we're going to start like this. And he said, you do know you're going to die, don't you? And I was rather concerned then. I said, what do you mean now? No. He says, eventually you will die, won't you? Yeah. I said, of course, yeah. He says, so no matter what happens, what you do, you're definitely going to die, but you don't know when, at what age you're going to die. You could have a serious illness, you could have an accident, this can happen to you, that can happen to you. And what he was actually doing was, he was pulling life to bits, literally. He was showing me photographs of whole people. This is what you'll end up like. And he was sort of drumming it into me that everything I was doing was a complete waste of time. He says, you'll get up, you'll do this, you go to bed, you'll get up and you'll do this. But at the end of the day, you're going to die anyway. You see?
Yeah.
So he kept on and on, to the point where this was hours later, he was still on about it, and I was getting really, really tired. I couldn't hardly keep my eyes open. I was keep nodding off.
How many hours do you think that was for?
I don't know at this stage. I'm not quite sure. Because like I said, I didn't have a watch on, and I just sat there. There wasn't any clocks in the room. In fact, there was nothing in the room apart from a locker in the corner and this wooden table. And I think there was about 4 or 5 chairs. And anyway, he kept on with this, to the point where I was so tired, and then he suddenly, out of nowhere, it looked like he put his hand underneath the table and brought out a service revolver and placed it in front of us. And he says, so what are you going to do about it, Geordie? I said, about what? and I was really nodding off. I couldn't keep my eyes open. He says, well, it is a waste of time, isn't it? He says, you may as well go now. He says, while you're still able to, without going through all this pain and suffering as you're getting older.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, he convinced us that much that I picked the revolver up and put it to my head. And I was going to pull the trigger. But I found that I had to use two hands. I had to keep a hold of my right wrist with my left hand because the revolver was so heavy. And I was literally trying to pull the trigger and I couldn't. But then he suddenly put his hand up and grabbed my hand, pulled it down to the table and took the revolver away. He says, what the hell are you doing? And I was so confused. And like I said, I couldn't keep my eyes open. I was looking at him and said, well, you've just convinced us this is just a total waste of space, I may as well go in now. What's the point? What's the point of it all, you see? And he says, well, look, your mother didn't bring you into this world for nothing. And I was keep dropping off and stammering because I couldn't hardly answer him, answer these questions. I was in such a dumb state. I was numb. I don't know how long I had been there, but I noticed that things were, they had to switch a light on in the corner. Someone came in and put this light on. Now, I haven't got this in the book, by the way, but that's what did happen.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, he started to explain why life was so important and why I had to stay alive as long as I could. And he was keep on using the words, the law of nature. You have to do this and you have to do that. And this is why, your mom didn't go through all this trouble to bring you here and things like that. And it was after that, everything went blank. I can't remember anything after that. And then suddenly, all I heard was someone saying, Jody, come back, Jody. And I was sort of trying to make his face out. And it was one of the lads from who had been training in the hangar. He was there, and he's saying, "Come on, have some tea, Jody. Come back." So by the time I really sort of gathered me thoughts, and I said, "Come back from where? What's happening? What's wrong with you?" Oh, he says, "You're great. That's great." He says, "Yeah, you're going to be okay." And I said, "Okay from what?" I just didn't understand. You see.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I start to recover, I think it was Dynamo said. I had said to this other lad called Dynamo, I said, by the way, when am I supposed to start this training? You see? I says, and what was all of this about? He says, don't worry about it. He says, the training that you're going to be learning is called the machine. But he says, guess what? I says, what? He says, you already know it. So I started to smile. In fact, I was laughing. I said, what do you mean I already know it? I haven't been anywhere. How the hell could I possibly know it? He says, well, have a look at your arms. So I looked at my arms, and there were scratch marks on my arms. And I felt, he says, nip your arm. And I nipped my arm and that. And I couldn't feel it. I was really, really numb. And he says, put your hand up to your mouth. And I found it awkward even to touch my mouth. But when I did, I got blood from my mouth. And I had some teeth loose at the back, which had to come out eventually. And I couldn't understand how the hell I was in that position, what actually took place here. And I'm trying to work it out. And I kept on saying, because I was dazed, I didn't know still what was actually happening here. I says, what's all this about? What the hell's happening? Why am I like this? Why am I in such a state? And my trousers were in a mess. He says, well, when you're asking about this combat, this machine, he says, yeah, well, you do already know it. I said, well, how's that possible? I said, I've only been here. And I said, I don't know how many hours, but I've only been here about a day or so. He says, no, you haven't. He says, you've been here for more than 4 days. I said, that can't be possible. That's just not possible. I stood up. I tried to stand up and staggered about. And I looked out of the office windows, which were all broken, and there was no sense of, I couldn't see a clock, so there was no way I knew what day it was, you see?
Yeah.
So anyway, to cut a long story short, because this goes on for quite some time, after a while, when I started to get to know them, and it was time for me to go back to camp, so the whole object of the exercise here was for me to train, and the camp was supposed to send me off in what you call working parties. They send you to another regiment to do some work. So I could be there for a week. And as far as the regiment I was with, as far as they knew, that's where I was, and they couldn't care less, because once the signed us out, and I signed in at the other end, the regiment I was with, like I said, as long as I came back on the day I was supposed to come back, that was okay. Nobody asked any questions.
Sure.
You see? So, and also, I would bring back a report on what I had done. So, anyway, after I had went through all of that and went down into the training area, they explained to me that the machine or the combat was already in my subconscious brain. It'd been put there. Well, don't forget, I was only 18. I had never seen a television set. I'd been working on a farm. I had no idea about programming people or anything like that. So I had no idea what was going on or even what he was talking about. I just looked at them as though they were all crazy. So anyway, eventually they said, well, okay, the next time we bring you back, you're going to be showing us what you can do. But he says, your conscious brain, we're going to put you through another training program where your subconscious brain has got to get used to the idea that you already know this. So your body will be reacting in such a way and you'll be stopping things, but your conscious brain will not be able to understand it. He says, until he gets used to the idea.
Okay.
So I still had no idea what all this was about. So they took us back to my wagon, which was on the side of the main road when I got back. And it had been moved, and there was papers in there which had already been signed. And I jumped in the truck and I went off to the camp. When I got there, nobody said anything. I just left the vehicle at the Remy depot, not so far away, walked back into camp. The little sergeant that was there had said, have you been on holiday? We're starting to take the mickey sort of thing. Where you been? And all that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wanted to tell them, but I was worried about telling them. So I never said anything. I just went back to me tent with the and started talking to me mates, and they asked us what I was doing. I said I had been rehearsed into saying I'd just been to an Royal Army Ordnance depot and we're putting tents up and things like that. That's what they told us to say. So anyway, nothing was said. So another 10 days had gone by, and I thought, I wonder when they're calling me back. Was all this just a damn dream? So anyway, on the Wednesday when we were on parade, my name was shouted out again. And I had been to other camps in between this, by the way. But on this particular morning, I found myself on the back of a truck with 5 other lads, and we were on the way to Famagusta. And on the way there, they dropped me off at the sort of camp, which was about 200 yards from the main road, and they left us there. They said, that's it, George, just walk over to the gate. He says, here's your papers. So I got off the truck, stood looking, watched them drive off, and I waved at them as they were leaving. And just as I turned around to walk towards the gate of this army camp, I'll not say which one, but anyway, it was the Royal Army Ordnance Depot. before I got there, this Land Rover, this Jeep, pulled up again, told us to get back in, and then drove us off to the training camp. So what happened after that was, I had to go through all this training. They give us various different weapons. One was called a sash. The sash was some kind of belt that was made up of some kind of fibers, and it was that I'd been using on these turnips that ripped them to bits.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a weapon I could wear, and if you looked at it, you wouldn't be able to tell I was wearing a weapon. You just think it was an ordinary belt. So I don't want to go too much into that, because I don't want this sort of thing to get on the streets. Do you understand? If somebody may be able to copy it,
yeah,
you might give them ideas. It's so dangerous and so, like I say, it's lethal.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I was surprised when I was doing the training with them. They were bringing rifles out, guns out. I had to disarm them. They were using machetes. 3 or 4 of them would come at us, and I could disarm them. And I was confused because, as I said, my conscious brain just wasn't used to it. So after a few days of that, I started to understand what they meant, and I started to understand what this combat was about, because it was really unusual. Now, your listeners are going to find this very, very difficult to believe.
Sure.
This wasn't any kind of martial arts. We never punched anyone, and I'll explain why. If you punch someone, you push them away from you. Also, if you punch someone, you could possibly damage your fist. But in armed forces especially, the type of person you'd be coming up against would probably be wearing some kind of body armor, helmets, grenades, bandoliers, weapons of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't very well kick these guys or punch them. It wouldn't have any effect.
Mm-hmm.
So the training I went through, I didn't punch anybody. I didn't have to. And I didn't actually grab them as such. Now, this is the bit where people are going to say, oh, it must be some kind of force or power or some kind of
like a Jedi
electric
Knight.
force or some... Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's nothing
Use
like that
the
at all.
Force, Luke. The Force.
Pardon?
Use the Force, Luke. Star Wars.
Yeah, well, it's nothing like that. It's how can I put it? It's when people think of martial arts and they think all the different styles they have, there must be thousands of different styles, but basically they all end up the same thing. It's either punching or kicking, you see? And as I say, what that actually does is it drives the person away. If you hit them, you're just knocking them away, and you might not do that much damage. They're going to be coming back. So if there's more of them, if they've got friends with them, you're in serious trouble, you see? But anyway, the combat that I learned was, like I say, it's all psychological, it's all strategy, it's making the enemy believe that they're in charge. That enables us to get close to them, and then be able to disarm them in such a way where I can take a rifle or any kind of weapon, regardless of what it is.
Is this like jiu-jitsu,
like
where you're using their energy against them? Because that's what jiu-jitsu is.
No. It's not. It's nothing like jiu-jitsu or anything like that. No. When I begin to disarm them, don't forget. Picture someone pointing a pistol at you. We'll just say it, okay?
Yeah.
Now, when someone pulls a trigger on a pistol or a revolver, I should say, we'll say a revolver. A pistol. When you pull a trigger on a pistol, the slide goes back and forward, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As it ejects the empty cartridge.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you grab the pistol, if you grab it, you can lose your fingers.
Mm-hmm.
Or your fingers will get damaged by the empty cartridge coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So all the things you've got to look at is you've got the flash of the gun can blind you.
Yeah.
The noise, the bang of the gun, if it's anywhere near your ears, can deafen you.
Mm-hmm.
Then you obviously have the bullet that comes out, which will kill you, and then you have the slides that goes back and forward, that ejects the empty cartridge, that can take your fingers off.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So any of these things would do some serious damage to you. So you have to avoid all of that. So you cannot actually grab the pistol. You just kind of grab it. If you do, that's what will happen. Your fingers will get cut or damaged in some way. But the machine prevents all of that. I don't have to grab the gun. But again, this is not a training program. Do you understand? I'm not trying to teach people here.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to have to try and guess what I did.
Okay.
So don't forget, I don't grab anybody. I don't actually grab them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
Yet I can disarm them in such a way where I end up with the pistol or revolver, or whatever you want, whatever it is. I'm disarming. Even a rifle. It can be a submachine gun, 303. Could be anything. It doesn't matter. I'll still disarm them, even if they've got straps on. I can disarm them, disable the guy that's in front of us in such a way where I can actually use them as a shield if I need to, and I will have lined the other, if he's got partners with him, I can actually line them up at the same time and be able to take them out without them being able to shoot me, because the guy who I'm disarming would actually be in the way.
Mm-hmm.
But I won't have done that much damage where the guy collapses, but I'll be in full control of the scenario. You see?
Yeah.
Now, not so long ago, I think it's about 2.5 years, 3 years ago, there was a company in England called Britam. It's a security company. They had heard about us, rang us up and said, we're interested in the skills you've got. Well, I didn't really want to teach anyone, to be quite honest. Mm-hmm. But I needed some credibility. Do you understand?
Yeah.
I needed some proof that the skills I had worked. You see? Mm-hmm. You know, to the people around us.
But can I ask you, John, how could you teach anybody if you were trained when you were in a trance state? How could you possibly train anybody yourself then?
Well, I can train them in the combat.
Yeah.
It takes, obviously, see, the object, the exercise was, they didn't have, it's a long story, because first of all, they've got to get rid of your fear. It's called a fear elimination program. What I actually went through was a thing called the one step beyond. So let's get back to the part where I went into that room and sat down, and for 4 days I had no idea where I was.
Yeah.
Well, something I didn't put in the book in the first place was, this is what happened. This is what actually happened. When I was sitting there and I went into this sort of a daze, what happens is, when they were saying, come back, Jody, what they meant was, I was actually dying.
Okay.
And it was called, like I said, it's called a near-death experience.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is, when they put you in a state, now don't forget, when people have a near-death experience, it's usually because they've either had an accident, where it's a lack of blood or whatever, and this is why they're dying.
Mm.
Because of that, because of lack of blood and what have you, the brain is starved of the blood, or it's getting too much oxygen, or not enough. And what happens is, everything, in other words, the subconscious brain goes wild, and all sorts of pictures start appearing. You'll get this bright light at first, and then you feel as though that you've left the body and you're looking down. Well, I was told that's not actually what's taking place. Because I had nothing wrong with this, and they got me in the same state, the pictures were under control. In other words, Ken at the table could actually talk to me, and this is what I experienced. I was looking down at the table, and I could see myself and Ken opposite me. And this is what they've been trying to do for years and years. These various different programs to try and
MK Ultra,
fear elimination programs. You see, And I had no idea at the time that that's what I was going through, because I never even heard of anything like that. I didn't think that was possible. So anyway, I'll explain. When I was looking down, I wasn't actually looking down. It sounds silly. What I was doing was, the energy starts to leave the body, and my eyes are closed. It's the sort of the middle ear, if you like, the middle eye. You're looking up through the energy, and you're looking down through the energy. In other words, you're still sitting in the seat, but it's like a periscope. It's acting like a periscope.
Okay.
All the time I was looking down, Ken was telling me what I was looking at. So this is where the fear elimination comes in. Now, I don't want to go into that too much, because I'm into that, but I'll go into it a little bit. What I actually saw was quite strange. I saw a lot of these, what looked like small tadpoles, if you like, or something like a shape of a tadpole, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were altering in length and in colour. And there was thousands of these things. And as they were going around the room, or passing through the room, and they were passing through the people in the room, I had no idea what they were. And Ken was pointing them out to us what they were. But I'm not going to go into it on this radio program. He was explaining what they were and what I was actually looking at. So he was telling us this is the near-death experience. And what happened was, when I was looking down, he was talking to us and explaining what was taking place and what I was looking at. What was happening is a blank spot was, how can I explain this? Picture a film that's running, and there's a guy sitting in a chair, and then suddenly he's out of the chair, but there doesn't appear to be a break in the film. Do you understand?
Yeah.
In other words, the guy's out of the chair, but you don't see him get up out of the chair. You see?
Mm-hmm.
And then other people were in the room, and I didn't see them come in the room. And this seemed to start to happen more quickly. In other words, it seemed to speed up. People seemed to be appearing out of nowhere and then disappearing again. And what that actually was, this was the near-death thing. This is where I was actually dying. This is where me head was, I was blanking out. And then as I came to again, I didn't know I had blanked out. I thought everything was sort of still carrying on. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So nothing had happened, you see? And it was around about that time. There's a lot more things happened during that period of time, which I don't want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
It was then when Dynamo and them were shaking us and saying, "Come back, Geordie." Now, apparently, one of the main reasons why they chose me was because people are going to obviously want to know. They're going to say, "Why you? You had no education. You hardly ever went to school. Okay, you were a keep fit fanatic." I was also a bit of a gamekeeper before I went in. I was a marksman within the first week of my training. And that's all I had going for us. Apart from, I've never drank and I never smoked, you see?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I'd been with him for quite some time when I actually got down. One of the main reasons why we chose you was mainly because you didn't drink and smoke. I said, well, what the hell is that going to do anything? He says, well, if you drink is a drug. This is why you stagger about, and this is why people vomit and things like that. He says, it's a drug. It's attacking the brain. That's why you can't stand up, you see? And the smoking is the same thing. You hadn't been contaminated. You could not have went through this. You would have died. You wouldn't have came back from it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we call it one step beyond.
Right.
I said, well, why didn't you tell us this in the first place? He says, you wouldn't have went through with it.
Very true. You wouldn't have, yeah.
See, so you said you wouldn't have went through with it. Now, this, obviously, your listeners are going to find this.
You're breaking up there slightly. Could you turn off your video camera there, John, please? Could you turn off your video camera? You're just breaking up slightly.
Okay.
Just knock it
I'll
off
do that
there.
now. Is that better? Is it?
It should be better. You break it up a small. Go on. Yeah, what were you saying?
Is it? Well, anyway, I'll tell you what. Let's get back to where a couple of years ago, this company called Britain wanted wanted these skills that I've got, but they wanted some proof that they actually worked. You see.
Mm-hmm.
Now, don't forget, I didn't want anybody to learn this. I didn't want them to learn it, but I needed some qualifications here. I needed some proof that this wasn't just all talk.
Why do you need proof, John? Proof for what?
Well, I needed some credibility, like, for instance, talking like this on your show, but also training people around us. I was training instructors. And I wanted them I wanted to prove to them that I had the qualifications for it.
Yeah,
that was one. There's something else as well, which I'm not going to mention. But anyway, cut long story short, Britain sent us down to Hereford, to the SAS training camp, right, to a gym down there.
Yeah. And
when I went into the gym, I had an SAS officer, which I'll tell you off the air who he is, okay? And this officer stood there in which to say, well, I'm here, you've been sent here so we can do a report to Britain, and we will tell them if what you do is any good to them, you see? He said, I'm here for the test. So I took 3 or 4 of my lads down with us, and we talked about it a bit, and then I put on a demonstration. Their instructor was one of the world's champion in martial arts, and that's what they'd been taught, martial arts.
Yeah.
So this is not a lie in any way. I can prove this to you. When I was disarming people, and I said, well, it doesn't matter how many there are you, if you want to, try and attack us, I'll show you how I do it. The instructor down there got so much of a shock, and the guy from Britain, he was there watching, and the instructor went over and sat down beside, I'll tell you his name, Dave, sat down beside him, and Dave later said to me, their instructor was shaking like a leaf, sitting next to me. He said, so, they were really impressed. During the time I was there, I wasn't there long, this major in the SAS stopped everything. He says, stop. He says, I've seen enough. He says, I'm going to recommend this to Britain. You see? And the lads, my lads that was with us, looked at me and said, what's all this about? I said, look, he's seen something, and he doesn't want the SAS to know about it. I said, that's why he stopped it. So he's sure? I said, I'm positive. So anyway, a week went by, and this major came up to my club up here in Newcastle on 2 or 3 occasions, and I kept on proving to them that instinctive shooting and all that, and me disarming people, I went through it again with him, but I bombarded him with that much that he wouldn't be able to remember exactly how it was done. Do you understand?
Sure, yeah.
He wouldn't be able to get the technique, and I showed him so many things, and I also put him through one of my initiative courses. And now in the book, it's mentioned there about I was put through initiative courses when I first met these guys. They wanted to see how I could get out of the problems. And one of the problems was they put an egg on a piece of wood that's stand on its edge with the egg balancing on the top. So if you touch the egg, it would fall off. Now, this is going to be hard to believe, but I can show that anytime to anybody and prove that I can do it. And some of my lads in the club can do it now. What they did was they put this at the other end of the hanger, and the hanger's got steel girders, like round pipes, round steel bars to hold the place up. So I'm at one end of the hanger, and at the other end of the hanger is this egg balancing on this piece of wood, just lying there. And I was about, 40, 50 feet away. And I had to stay where I was and I could barely see the egg on top of this piece of wood. And they said, if you want your lunch, Geordie, what we want you to do is stay where you are. You're not allowed to move. And he scratched a circle on the ground. And he says, I don't want you to move off this spot. He says, but in the meantime, you can pick up whatever you want. And he gives us a ball of string and what they call a dog clip, which you would call a carabiner. And it was slightly different shape. And he gives us that. And he says, whatever you want, you can pick up. But once you're in the circle, you can't get out of it. You haven't got to step out that circle. He says, but the object, the exercise, is to stay where you are and pick that egg, get that egg down there and get it back up here without you breaking it. But it hasn't got to touch the ground in any way whatsoever. So, to my amazement even, I did it. I did it in less than 15 minutes. And they said I wouldn't get me lunch until I did it, you know. So anyway, I did that. Now, the idea is to get you to look at a problem that looks about as though it's impossible to do. And I wanted to find out how you functioned, how your brain worked. So I did that, and I did several others as well, which appeared to be impossible. So anyway, this guy, this major, who came up, he said, look, I understand that in your book, when you went on an operation in Cairo, in Egypt, that you got into this compound across two barbed wire fences, 13 feet high, with a dog patrol in between the two fences surrounding this building, this 3-4-story building. I said, that's right. He says, how did you get in there without anybody seeing you? I says, well, I'm not going to show you, but I'll explain what we did when we got onto the building without anybody seeing me. I said, now, the object, the exercise, is to get in, get this guy. But I says, at the time, you see, I didn't really know why we wanted to kill this guy. I understood it was for some kind of technology, or it was some kind of paperwork we were after. But they didn't actually tell me at that time. So anyway, we got onto the roof of this building without the dog patrol seeing me. And don't forget, these guys are Russians, by the way, not Egyptians. There was Egyptians there, but these were Russians. And we got on top of this building, and we got through a skylight. Before we got through the skylight into this top room to where this guy was in his office, and this was about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and it was dark. One of my group, I don't know how he did it, because I was on the roof at the time, he set fire to this building not far from the main building, which I believe was some kind of generator. But he had set fire to it. Because when we looked through the top of this cover that was on the building, on the top, this hatch, there was two guards outside this guy's door. So by setting fire to this building in the yard, the two guards dashed downstairs to help to put the fire out. You know, they're all shouting and screaming. And apparently there was some fuel in there as well. So this is why they were getting so excited. Yeah. We dropped down. Into this corridor. We went up to the door, and we opened the door. And when we opened the door and went in, here this guy was sitting in this room at his desk. And if you picture a fairly large room with 3 windows at the back, 3 large windows, but they had metal bars on the outside. You understand? You couldn't get out of them. Yeah. And there was only that one door. And this door was fairly a big door, and it was about, 3 inches thick, this door. And it had 2 locks on the inside. It had the ordinary lock, you know, the standard sort of lock, but it was fairly large. And then another lock, which you could lock on the inside, but you couldn't lock on the outside. In other words, it didn't have a keyhole on the outside. So when we went in the room, he shouted out in Arabic, "What the hell's going on?" You see? Yeah. You know, with all the commotion in the yard. So Dynamo went straight up to the guy, And he's saying, and this guy was saying, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And Dynamo went up, cracked him on the jaw, and knocked him out. And he was going to kill him. He was going to break his neck. You see, kill him. And we saw that the keys, there were some keys on his desk that fitted were for that room, and there was only 2 keys on this ring. See, on this piece of metal, wire sort of thing. And when I saw that, we all seemed to think together for some reason. I mean, we didn't say much. I says, "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" He says, "Yeah." So instead of killing the guy after we knocked him out, and they were taking pictures of documents that was lying on the table, and they were searching the drawers where we were trying to figure a way on how to kill this guy without making too much noise. And anyway, this is what happened. We found out here a revolver. We had also, what we were carrying was we had stolen a truck and killed the guards in it when we were on the way to Cairo. This is from the shores of the Mediterranean, say Port Said. We had travelled 85 miles to get there into Cairo, and we'd stole trucks and killed people and everything on the way. So anyway, to cut a long story short, we come up with the idea, because we all carried this string in our pocket. This is where these initiative courses come in. What happened was, we locked what we're doing was we shot the guy in the head with the revolver, and we used this brand new oil filter as a silencer. You see? So shot the guy in the head. We let the revolver fall on the floor. Then we got the keys. Now, if you want to see this yourself, I mean, working, I'll show you. Okay? Because what I'm about to tell you, again, you're not going to believe. But neither did this officer, this SAS officer. He didn't believe it until I did it with him in my office. This is what we did. We locked the door, this office door. We put the bolts in. We put a chair underneath the handle of the door, but we weren't in the room when we did it. We were outside in the corridor. Right? We left, got on the roof, and we fired a gun. So the guards would hear it. They came running upstairs. When they tried to open the door, it was locked from the inside. And there was 2 bolts put in, and there was a chair. So they had to smash that door down. It would have took them quite a while to break that door down.
You did all that with string, right? John, is it?
Pardon?
You did all that with string. You tied up all that stuff with string from the...
Yeah, but wait a minute. We not only locked the door, we put the keys in the guy's pocket. So yeah, the keys were in his pocket after we locked the door.
Well, the only way I can think you did that is you set up some sort of system of pulleys, some way, shape, or form.
No, there's no pulleys involved, just the string. Okay. Jeez. But anyway, we put the keys in the guy's pockets.
Yeah.
And there was no string left or anything, but the door was locked. The bolts were in. The chair was underneath the handle of the door, and the keys were in the guy's pocket, who was lying dead at the desk. Jeez. We got through the roof. We fired the gun so they could hear a gun going off. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So they heard the gun going off. They dashed upstairs. By the time they got the door down, we were out and away. In other words, we didn't have anyone chasing after us. Why should they? The guy, in their eyes, had committed suicide.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
That was the idea. That was the whole object of the exercise.
My God.
But we didn't know that until we actually got into the room and found that we could do it. That's how we're trained. We're trained that way. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So anyway, again, that's what we did. And when this officer from the SAS came to my club, he asked that question. That cannot be done, surely. So I sat him at my desk in my club, and it was more difficult because the key, you could hardly get the key in the damn lock. It was so tight. But at the end of the day, I did it. I locked the door from outside in the passage, and I put the keys in this officer's hand. And he just sat there with his mouth open and said, "I cannot believe what I've just seen done." You see?
Yeah.
So anyway, that convinced him. But after that, what he was trying to do was they were trying to steal the ideas of us, because this officer was retiring in a few months' time. And what he wanted to do was, he was actually working for this company, you see?
Yeah.
And what he wanted to do was, he wanted to learn these skills, and he wanted to sell them to the SAS. He didn't want the SAS to know. That's why he stopped. That's why he cut the exercise we're doing straight away when he saw that he had never seen anything like this before in his life. Now, his words, and I've got all this in documents, by the way. These are documents they signed, wanting to sign an agreement with me, and I've got them.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got proof that he came. I've got photographs of this guy in my club, right? So I've got all the evidence, and that's what I was after. They wanted to put this on the market and sell it commercially. I said, no way, you're not going to do that. So I'm not going to sign this agreement. But I had already planned that. I didn't want this to end up like martial arts on YouTube, because the art of self-defense is the element of surprise. You understand?
Yeah, yeah.
And you don't want people to know something that is really unusual,
Mm-hmm.
and really no one knows about it. So, you know, if it's freely available, obviously it isn't any good, because the enemy knows all about it. You're saying they're prepared for it. So this is one of the reasons why I turned them down. But I also know that I've got the agreement. I can let you see it, and I'll prove to you that all they wanted me was, as an individual, not my lads, they wanted me to train their men, and they said that they'd give me a few grand, and they would have the sole rights of the machine.
Yeah.
That's what they were after. My name wasn't going to be mentioned, but I've got these documents, and I can prove it, that these guys wanted the skills, but they didn't want me involved. They just wanted me to train their instructors so they could make a damn fortune with it and sell it to the open market. And I knew that from the beginning, you see. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I got that. I got the written documents of them, signed by them and everything. So that was giving me some credibility. The next one was, I was invited over to Egypt. The Egyptian Special Forces invited me over there. And if you get on my website, which is johnirwin.com, you'll see some photographs of me on there in Egypt with their Special Forces.
Yeah.
When I went over there, they wanted to know how I did that in Egypt, in Cairo, how I killed. They knew I killed that guy, and they knew they had found bodies on the side of the Nile with their fingers missing. That's what we did, because we disarmed them with a sash, put it that way.
Right.
Takes their fingers off. Yeah. And they had found these bodies. Now, to prove that, I've got a scroll of them, of their major, signed by them, right? It's in a frame downstairs on my wall, saying I was the best counter-terrorist expert in the world, because I had put on a show for them, and I showed them that I could disarm just about anybody. Mm-hmm. And they brought a bus, this single-decker bus, which I've got photographs of, and I had it full of officers, and they would pretend to be hostages with three gunmen on the bus. Mm-hmm. The object of the exercise was, I had to get the 3 terrorists without hurting any of the passengers, you see, any of the hostages. I explained how I would do it, and I said, are you negotiating with these terrorists? And they said, yes. I said, okay. Part of the deal, whatever it is the deal is, you ask these people if they could send a doctor on board to examine the passengers. Otherwise, they wouldn't go through with the negotiations, you see?
Yeah.
So I went on as a doctor. Now, don't forget, these guys knew what I was doing. They knew I was going to do something. Mm-hmm. You understand? Yeah. So I didn't have the element of surprise.
Yeah.
And this particular officer sat in the front seat of the bus, and he was laughing because the last guy who escorted us on the bus made sure he kept behind us, and he followed us on with the gun in my back. Now, these were real guns, but they were firing like a pain capsule. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. And the bloody well hurt. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I entered the bus with this guy behind us, and there was a guy in the middle of the bus, in the gangway, and there was another guy with a submachine gun at the back of the bus behind some seats. Mm-hmm. See? So anyway, I went on, and put this bag I had, which was pretend to be a doctor's bag, I put it on the floor, and then I went to examine one of the passengers, so-called. But everybody's looking at me here. In reality, they'd be all standing out the window looking at the soldiers outside. Do you understand?
Yeah.
They wouldn't be looking at me. They wouldn't be interested. So I had lost the element of surprise. So anyway, what happened was, the guy that was behind us was now in front of us. I disarmed him, shot him in the top of the leg, shot the guy in the middle who was in the middle of the bus. I shot him and shot the guy in the back of the bus in the head.
Right.
And they couldn't believe what they'd just seen. They don't forget these were just a capsule fired out of like a real bullet, you know, out of a real cartridge. And I had a stand ovation, literally. I couldn't believe it. And then when they escorted us to the hotel, they escorted me and the lads, and they had sirens going. They had everything. Pardon?
You couldn't believe that you could do that yourself, is it?
No, I knew I could do it quite easy. They couldn't believe.
They couldn't believe, right?
What I had just did. No, and I had said to the interpreter who was with us, I said, you've got to explain to these people what I've just did now. You were fully aware I was going to do something. I could have done it a lot easier if you had no idea that I was going to do that. And that was even more. They really understood that. Now, these soldiers were the 3-7s. Did you understand? It's their special forces.
Yeah.
These are the people that are trained by our SAS. They've been trained by the SEALs from America.
Yeah.
And I've got this document with their signatures on, saying I was the best counter-terrorist expert they thought in the world. And I've got that to prove I was there, and the photographs, you see? And I got a medal off them as well. You see, so I did all that just to prove that the skills I've got are real. You understand? It's not a joke, this. This is not some kind of fairy tale.
No.
And it sounds like a one.
It sure does, yeah.
It sounds like a one. I don't blame people for thinking that. You see, because the things that I'm saying sound impossible. But that's the whole object of the exercise. The more impossible people think it is, then the more I get away with it.
Right.
You understand? The more it'll work.
It's about perception, is it?
Surprise. Pardon?
It's about perception. It's about people's perception of what you're doing. It's how you do it.
That's right. It's only believe half of what you say and half of what you hear.
Yeah.
You know, there is skills that, you know, that's not just freely available. You see, that's the trouble. You see, that's where the problem lies. If you want to know anything about the SES and their skills, all you got to do is go on YouTube, and they'll show you all the skills they've got. You see?
Yeah.
Well, I was asked the question by this officer, which I'll not name. I was asked the question, and he says, "How would you have dealt with the Iranian embassy?" Can you remember the Iranian embassy?
Vaguely.
Well, anyway, it happened a lot of years ago, where the SAS stormed the Iranian embassy in London because there was terrorists in there holding hostages, right?
Yeah.
And I said, well, this is where I think, and when I talk like this about the SAS, I'm not talking about the individual. Do you understand? Yeah. I'm talking about the people that run the damn thing, right? Now, the worst thing you could possibly do is televise something like that, and that's exactly what they did. This has proved that they're amateurs, because they had BBC television cameras there, watching the SAS coming in with the helicopters, landing on the roof, running through the streets, abseiling down the building, right? You never ever do that. You never teach the enemy your skills, never. And these idiots actually televised what they did.
Yeah.
One of them, when they were abseiling, you see, they hadn't gone through the fear elimination. They didn't know what that was at the time, and they still don't. So these guys, when they were abseiling, you could see they were scared, because one of them was stuck for whatever reason on the rope. The other one came down and landed on his head on the balcony, and then they threw stun grenades through the windows, and there was so many flames coming back out. The guy that was caught on the rope, which you can get pictures of that, by the way, on YouTube. They've even got pictures of it,
Jeez.
where the guy's burning. He was burning on the rope. He caught fire, you know. When they got in the building, again, it's a good job they were amateurs, these terrorists, because there was so much smoke in there, and don't forget they didn't have night sights and things like that then. Anyway, they went in, they shot these 3 terrorists or 4 terrorists. They practically burnt the building to the ground, and on top of that, this film was freely available everywhere. Well, that's what you just don't do. You're a real amateur if you do that, because you're educating the enemy. Never educate the enemy. And that's exactly what they do, you see? So anyway, this is why this SAS officer wanted these skills, you know? Yeah, this is why this officer wanted these skills. So is there any other questions you would like to ask us?
Yeah, just so you had to go to the one step beyond, John, yeah? This training, this trance they put you into training to induce death so that you could basically enter into the subconscious mind and implant some sort of motor skills. It's called,
it's called today, they call it programming, don't they?
Programming, yeah.
See, see what happened in the late 50s or 50s, it was called brainwashing.
Yeah.
But most people in various armed forces throughout, like the Americans, for instance, never knew how that was done. They tried all sorts. They tried electric shock treatment. They tried drugs. And they were driving their soldiers literally mad. They wanted to try and find a way how to make what they used to phrase as a super soldier.
Yeah.
Right? And we had been taught all sorts of skills, running, what you call wall running, jumping about jumping about from windows to various different things like that.
Yeah.
The idea was to train as sort of a super soldier, something totally different from the average soldier, and that's what the trained us in. You see. Now here's another one. This is something else that's in my book, by the way. It's called The One Step Beyond. When we were going up to Jaraba, when we did this exercise, we used to call them jobs, by the way. Then we never. They weren't operations or anything like that. We never used military terminology. What we actually did when we were on our way to Jaraba, when we crossed the river there, don't forget, all this is planned. We are operating in a group of 4 people. The rest of the 16 were acting as intelligence gathering. They were in different countries. They would send us back the necessary information we needed on various different jobs we did, you see?
Yeah.
Well, they also planted stuff for us so we wouldn't have to carry anything. So when we got there, the gear would be available for us. But when we went to Jaraba, unfortunately, it took 12 of us to do that job. There were 16 who were involved, but mainly some of them were driving helicopters, boats, and things like that. They were driving the transport for it. But there was 12 of us that actually went to Jaraba because it was a big compound. It was surrounded. It was full of troops, and we had to get into that building and retrieve certain objects, which I'll not talk about because this was advanced technology we were after. It was all in these tablets, these things that look like oblong bits of glass.
Right.
And that's another story. But that's in the book as well. I explain what they are. And anyway, on our way there, we had to cross this river. Now, don't forget, this river Jordan, we knew exactly what part of the river we were heading for. We knew exactly what we would find when we got there. Do you understand?
Yeah.
We knew the conditions of the river. We knew how wide the river was. So when we got there, we knew that ordinary troops wouldn't be able to cross it. It was too deep, and it was flowing too strong, and it was spring, and the mountains in Syria were, all the snow was melting, so the water was really cold and it was rushing. It was really strong. You wouldn't be able to get across normally.
Yeah.
But when we got there, we got from one side of the river to the other side of the river without touching it. Has that got you guessing?
Oh,
it's a bit like the rope trick.
Right.
Now we can get a rope across the other side of the river, fastened down from the side of the river that we are on. We don't have to cross it to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You see, we have the equipment we've got enables us to do that.
Right.
And that's something else I teach people when they come and join us, you see, as a survival group. So anyway, that's what we could do. We can get across the river. They wanted to know that as well, but I wouldn't even show them it.
Mm-hmm.
But they knew that we could do it. The SAS knew. And when I say SAS, I'm talking about majors in the SAS. Okay,
sure.
We're not talking about the average soldier.
Yeah.
This is it. The average soldier in the SAS are not taught the skills that they should be taught.
Mm-hmm.
They're totally unaware. You see.
Mm-hmm.
But never mind. That's it. So at the end of the day, I got documents, written documents, signed documents of SAS majors, and I've got the same sort of thing of the special forces in Egypt, and that's what I was after, just to prove that when I come on even a program like yours, I could prove that what took place actually took place. This is not a dream. It's not a fairy tale.
The question I have for you, John, there is that if you're training other people, do they have to go through this one step beyond?
No.
Experience
I couldn't do that. I don't know how that. I don't know how the hell that was done. I have no idea.
So does that mean that anyone you train that can't be trained to the same level that you have been trained?
No, they're not going to. What they're going to be, they're going to be trained to a level that's far superior to what's available anyway.
Just with the techniques,
So,
is it?
Pardon?
Just with the techniques of the machine, is it?
Yeah, I mean, once you learn the object, the exercise was that to take the fear away. In other words, what you do, you've heard of psychopaths,
Yeah.
right? A psychopath is a guy who has no feelings.
Yeah.
He hasn't got any, he hasn't got any empathy, or he has no feelings for people.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there's a way you can control that, you see, and that's basically how it's done. It's through this one step beyond. What happens is these feelings are triggered off by what you see, and the reptilian brain or the animal brain, whatever you want to call it, will produce the right chemicals to make you experience these feelings, either fear or anger or whatever.
Yeah.
It's controlled by what you see.
Yeah.
So the exercise here was to be able to control these chemicals by, when they put you through this one step beyond, they plant these things in your subconscious so I can switch off. In other words, I don't suffer from fear in any way, shape or form.
Yeah.
The only way I fear things, like, for instance, if my family somebody's dying in my family, and I can't do nothing about it.
Sure.
That's the sort of fear.
You're talking about a scenario fear where it's a fight or flight situation that you're able to deal with.
Well, look, I'm a pilot. I fly airplanes. I do skydiving. I teach paragliding. I teach abseiling, and none of these things I'm not frightened. I'm not scared. I don't suffer from that type of fear. Understand?
Sure.
So anyway, that's what this one step beyond does. It takes that ability to switch from a normal human being to somebody who can switch off the fear. Now, to try and really explain that to you is going to be very difficult. How it's done, how I do it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't suffer from fear anyway. Full stop. Do you understand?
Yeah.
But I can still do things like kill someone without having. I won't hesitate. I won't. Do you understand? I've still got feelings, but I've got control of those feelings, where I wouldn't hesitate. In other words, the problem, fear is a stumbling block. And if I suffer from fear when you go into battle, well, anything can happen. You'll either, you'll either panic or you'll freeze or you'll do something silly.
Yeah.
Where if you get rid of the fear, that doesn't happen. And so that's the way I am even now. It's 74. It doesn't bother me at all. I still abseil. I still fly. I still do all the things I did 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
In other words, I don't have trouble crossing the road or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to have anybody to guide us across the road. And I can still do the combat. I can still do the combat now as well as what I did 53 years ago.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, John, it's been absolutely fantastic talking to you. And where can people get your book?
Well, if they go on my website, which is johnirwin.com,
mm-hmm.
or if they go into ucsdefense.com,
mm-hmm.
that's where they'll get the book.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll repeat that again. It's John Irwin, that's all one word, .com, or if they go on to ucsdefense.com.
Okay. Excellent. And are you offering training for people? Can people go to you and what
we're doing now is
we
know that we are aware. I don't know whether your listeners are aware of the New World Order and what their plans are.
I'm sure.
And if they don't, I think what they should do, they should look into this, because I believe that something will take place in London.
Mm-hmm.
And as Kissinger said, and you can check on this, Kissinger, this would be a great opportunity that they couldn't afford to miss to create a new world order. And that's exactly what they want. So if anything happens in London, it is the government's behind it.
Okay.
Just like 7/7
yeah.
and 9/11.
9/11, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Can I ask you, what do you think brought down those buildings in Manhattan there?
Manhattan Island, again, this is going to be very hard to believe. There were no aeroplanes involved at all. None. And if you want proof of that, what you want to do is this. It's quite easy, quite simple.
Yeah.
All you got to do is get the film of the aeroplanes going into the building.
Mm-hmm.
Now, aluminium aeroplanes can't cut through solid steel girders and concrete floors.
Yeah.
Without meeting heavy resistance.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
So watch the aeroplanes as they're going in, slow it up, and you'll see these, what look like aeroplanes, going right into the building and just disappear into the building.
Mm-hmm.
Don't concentrate on anything else. Just slow the film down, and you'll find that it's a hologram you're looking at.
Hologram?
Believe us, they're holograms. They're not aeroplanes at all.
Okay.
And it's said, if you want proof, you can prove it yourself. All you got to do is get the film of the aeroplanes going into the building, slow the film down frame by frame, and you'll watch the aeroplanes disappear into the building. That is not possible. Okay. Aluminium aeroplanes can't do that.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's scientifically not
understand?
possible. So what do you think brought down the buildings then?
Don't think of anything else. Just concentrate on the aeroplane going into the building.
Mm-hmm.
That cannot be done.
Okay,
there was an incident, in the papers about 3 weeks ago, where an aeroplane was taken off. I'm not sure exactly where it was. I think it was in Heathrow, where it was taken off, and a seagull hit the front of the plane and put a big hole in the front of the plane, and it went inside the cockpit. Now that was a seagull.
Seagull, yeah, there you go.
Hit the front of the plane. Yeah. Now, if you check on other planes that had a fault when they were taken off, and all they've done is went to the end of the runway, went off the end of the runway and fell, and they fell into a million little pieces.
That's right. That's right, yeah.
So you're going to try and tell me that an aeroplane can crash into these huge steel girders, which are, by the way, covered with cement, like an asbestos, to protect them against heat. Forget about heat. There was no heat involved. Them buildings were brought down by energy weapons that we were trying to prevent them from getting in 1959.
What type of energy weapons are you talking about?
Well, it's an energy weapon. I don't know exactly what it is. It's some kind of energy which is produced by satellites, and they can aim it at solid steel. There's a book out now. It's called "Where Did the Towers Go?"
Mm-hmm.
Check on that, and you'll see pictures of the steel girders when the buildings were collapsing under explosives as well in the building. Yeah. When they were collapsing, the steel girders that were left behind sticking up for a few seconds, you'll see steel girders 3 feet by 3 feet just disintegrate, turn into dust.
Right.
Levers, that's an energy weapon. We were trying to prevent them from getting that. Then you could ask yourself this question. Why is it that from just after 1950, leading up to 1960, when we had televisions that had valves in them and all that, were really problems with radios and things like that, suddenly we've got the type of advanced technology we have today in computers. You look at it. I'll tell you another one. If you want to believe in, if you don't think it's possible to have a hologram, you know Virgin Television.
Yeah.
That's owned by what's his name?
The guy, something, yeah. Richard something or other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Richard something.
Put his name in,
yeah.
and put the word hologram next to him. Now, what he did was, he was in an island somewhere. He was supposed to be in London at this big meeting and couldn't make it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
He appeared on a stage in front of it. Pardon? Richard
Branson.
Yeah. That's right, Richard Branson. He appeared on a stage in front of a huge audience, and everybody thought he was real. He was talking to people as though he was there. At the end of the program, he lifted his arms up and disappeared in front of them. That's on the net. Check it out.
I will check that out. Very interesting.
That's how advanced they are.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay?
John, that's very, very interesting. So the New World Order, right? There's many theories on the reasons why they are doing what they're doing. Because for its full, complete, and utter domination of the people on the planet, turn us into a slave race, like in a Brave New World. Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, or the 1984 book as well, George Orwell's 1984. So, what do you think the reasons are why they want to turn us into a slave race of people?
Well, I think we'll have to talk about that on another day. I can really go into it well, right? Because the people in charge, like you say, most of them are psychopaths, right? Money doesn't really mean anything to them at all. All they want is power. Yeah. But there's another reason, right? You've got to ask yourself this question. Here's something that your audience can think about. Why would someone plan something 150 years ago, right? Even 100 years or 80 years ago, are still planning it on something that they were never going to see. Do you understand?
Yeah.
They weren't going to see the results of what they were doing. Yeah. Why would anybody want to do that? Now, what I'm going into now, Life on Earth and Why We're Here, this is the film I want to get. If there's any people that can really make a good film who's got some kind of special effects available, I want to make a film on life on Earth and why we're here. But this is the real story. It's not a gimmick, and I can prove it's real.
Yeah.
And I can tell you why you're here. And I'll tell you something else. The elite, why do you think the elite want clones?
They don't want to die.
Listen, when you're dead, mate. They want you to believe in a heaven and hell. They want you to do that, right? They want full control over you. But there is they've got another agenda, and it's not just control of the world. They've got to take control of the world. They're going to get rid of vast numbers of the population of the world. And if your audience have really checked up on things, they'll know about the FEMA coffins, the concentration camps in America. Yeah. They'll know about the doomsday seed vaults up in Norway. You've got to ask yourself, why do they want these? Why do they want them? They're lining you up. This is for real. This is for real. They really mean it. They're going to do it. These are crazy people. Right? But again, they want to stay alive on this planet as long as they can. This is why they came out with these clones. What they wanted to try and do was, this is what they were trying to do, and I've got some information on this. What they're trying to do is they want your energy and the soul to be able to transfer it into one of their clones. So they take the memory that they've got now with them. Do you understand?
Okay.
That's what they're trying to do. They want to stay alive as forever. That's why, they've heard the elixir of life. They want to stay alive as long as they can. Well, I think they're right on the verge of that now. And they might have some ways of staying alive, I don't know. But why plan something 60, 70 years if you're not going to see the results of it? There's another agenda. Believers. There's something else out there that you know nothing about.
There's a satanic agenda there. There's something from a different dimension that's controlling these people. That's what I think is going on, you know.
Well, again, when they talk about dimensions and be able to move from one to the other, you cannot do it in this form. Do you understand?
Yeah.
The one that you're in now. You can't do it in that form. You must change frequencies to be able to do it. Just like you say, like a television set or whatever. There's different channels. These channels are there, but we just don't know how to do it. And another one you've got to remember is this. We were built in such a way where we're not meant to know these things. We're not designed to be able to work it out even. But when you go through that program that I went, is when you see it. I actually saw the damn thing. And it's for real. It wasn't nothing wrong with it. I wasn't suffering from anything. So, you know, like you say, if you take David Icke, for instance, he took a drug when he was in South America, I should say.
Ayahuasca.
So what he's seeing isn't real at all. In fact, his ideas on life and all that is completely opposite to what I know. Let's put it that way. And we'll talk about the races on the planet as well. That's totally different. There's a reason why they're so different.
They're seeded.
There's a reason for it.
They're seeded, yeah.
Pardon?
They're seeded races from different cultures, from people from not this planet or whatever, from distant
That's right.
Star
well,
systems.
they've had, there was 3 attempts to bring humans to this planet. The first ones were brought here. And like I say, I'm not 100% sure of this. I saw some documents and I saw some sculptures. Apparently, there were a real tall race of people that were brought here during the dinosaur times, right? And these were giant people. These were really big, and they actually got wiped out with the dinosaurs.
All right.
See? And that we were brought back in the more or less a very similar form to what we are now, but we were more like an animal. Do you understand? Because we didn't have clothes, and like now, for instance, if you didn't have a shave or you didn't do anything, you look like a bloody gorilla. And this is where Darwin got the idea from, that we must have been like apes, but we weren't. We weren't actually like apes at all. You know, we could use our toes then like fingers, but you know, we weren't like the ape. It was another. Anyway, it's another story that. But anyway, I hope your listeners understand. Like I say, I'm not an educated guy, and I'm not very rehearsed in interviews.
So well, you did very well.
I do apologise for my Geordie accent
in
case I don't understand.
You did a fantastic job, and you tell a very good story, I have to say. And I'm sure that everyone that listens to this will be very interested in it. And there's so much out there that we don't understand anyway. We only use 5% of our brain power.
Well, they don't want you to know. That's the main thing. It's not because you're only using part of your brain. You see, you're not meant to be able to use it for a start. Your sixth sense, if you like, your sixth sense left you thousands of years ago. They don't want you to get that back.
Yeah.
That's why they dumb you down. They dumb you. That's why whatever I say, people don't believe it. Why? That's the way they're built. They're built that way. They're programmed to believe in things. So again, like I said to you earlier before this interview, I said to you, if you put the truth into a barrel of lies and deception, the chances are you'll never find it. Okay?
Yeah.
So you take care, James.
Yeah.
And I'll say, like I say, I'll say bye to all your listeners.
Well, that's great.
But if anybody wants to contact us, they can. They can ask us any questions they want. Okay?
Yeah. On your website.
So anytime, on my website, that's johnirwin.com or ucsdefense.com.
One other question before you go, John. The 2012 Mayan prophecy and the Hopi Indian prophecy and the I Ching prophecy and all these prophecies for 2012. What do you think of that?
Well, it's a bit like the Bible. What they're doing is, if you think the end of the Earth's coming, it's not. There's a change. All the planets are starting to line up, so there'll be some big changes on the planet. They are fully aware of that. That's one of the reasons why they've got the doomsday seed vaults.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they've got. That's one of the main reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And also they get rid of millions of people. But again, it's a bit like the Bible. Now, a lot of people are going to be offended by what I say here,
mm-hmm.
right? But again, it's only me saying it. They don't have to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take the Bible is no different from the people that's running this planet. Think about it. In the Bible, that the people always seem to miss out is the death and destruction that these gods bring on us.
Mm-hmm.
They bring plagues. They bring famine.
Mm-hmm.
They tell you they're going to send you to hell.
Mm-hmm.
Is this right?
Mm-hmm.
This is right. These are facts. All the way through the Bible, it's death and destruction.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about bringing plagues on people, drowning people,
mm-hmm.
right? That's exactly the Bible is actually the blueprint of the New World Order, and it's the New World Order, and the people that's organizing this are making the predictions of the Bible come true.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever the Bible says that's going to happen will happen because they'll make it come true.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of your control. It's part of the control.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what the Bible's all about. The Bible itself. Remember the Ten Commandments,
mm-hmm.
right? Moses goes up in the hills on his own, but everybody believes him for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. He goes up and he comes back with the Ten Commandments. Is that right?
Yeah.
They made a film of it.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the Ten Commandments. Somewhere on the Ten Commandments, it says, "Thou shalt not kill." That's right, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make sure I'm right when I'm saying.
Yeah.
But when he comes back, he finds his tribe of people, his people, worshipping something else.
Mm-hmm.
What's the first words that come out of his mouth? He condemns them.
Yeah.
He kills them.
Mm-hmm.
He even throws the stones of the Ten Commandments at them
Mm-hmm.
and opens up the ground and kills them.
Mm-hmm.
The one doing is that bloody well told. That's why.
Mm-hmm.
It's mass murder.
Mm.
It's threats. It's kill, kill, kill.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the program that these people are programmed with.
Mm.
And they've got you believing in it that much. It's blasphemous to talk about it.
Yeah.
You understand?
Sure.
But the Bible is the blueprint of the New World Order. Believers.
Mm-hmm. Well, John, thanks very much. We'll leave it at that. That's over an hour and a half, which has been, at the time has flown, I have to say.
Fun. Okay.
And thanks very much. And we'll get John again at another stage in the future on the show.
Anytime, James. Take care, and like I said, best of luck to all your listeners.
Okay.
But if any of them want to get in touch, hey, I'm available.
Okay.